Hey guys, today was supposed to be an outdoor session, but when I got to the crag, my project was still wet. So I decided to visit a nearby climbing gym and check out the kilter board for the first time. Since I haven't used it before, my goal is to find the hardest grade that I can climb. Depending on the gym, my flash grade can be around V4 and V5, and I can project, some V6s and some V7s. So I'm curious how that'll translate to the kilter board. My strategy for this challenge is to choose the climbs that have the most descents, and I'm assuming that those will be the easiest climbs. So let's get right into it.
This first problem is a V0 called Penguin Feeds Bear. I know kilter climbs tend to be dynamic, but I wasn't prepared for a jump start right off the bat. This bump felt a little hard with my left hand in a deep lock-off, so I wonder if I messed up the beta. The second problem is a V1 called Evan Williams, and I should mention that I kept the board at 40 degrees for my entire session. It's a pretty straightforward jug ladder, but there's this cool dynamic move to the hold before the finish. Next up is a V2 called Sour Gummy Worms. This one feels a bit more technical. Keeping the lower foothold doesn't feel great, so I opt for a back flag. And the rest of the climb has some high feet. I move on to a V3 called You Don't Know Me. Surprisingly, this one felt like it had the most straightforward beta so far. The next problem is a V4 called Bell of the Wall. This one got me feeling a lot more dynamic. I would usually foot swap and do the next move statically, but I decided to just throw for it. And I do the same thing for the last move. I move on to a V5 called Lack of Faith. This one has big moves and is a lot more technical than all of the other climbs so far. This sequence for getting a high right foot and sinking into a back flag for a tensiony move is awesome, and probably the crux of the boulder. For the last move, it was tricky to keep tension on the right foot because I felt pretty stretched out. Shorter people might need to get higher feet or even cut loose completely. Next up is a V6 called Swooped. Getting my right foot up after grabbing the undercling was an absolute struggle. Instinctively, I wanted to move my left hand even though I read it as bumping my right. So then, I have to drop my foot back down, and I barely catch the hold in a 3-finger drag. I tried to readjust, but ended up coming off, so I worked that move in isolation. This time, I hit the hold too far on the left. Finally, I landed. I really had to overshoot it and get as deep onto the hold as I could. The rest of the climb is pretty straightforward, but there's this huge throw to a jug that makes you feel cool when you land it. So let's give it a try from the bottom. This time, I start with my right foot on the foothold, and it makes the beginning a lot easier. And just like that, my first V6 on the kilter board went down in 4 attempts. I move on to a V7 called Proj Braj. I surprised myself by getting this far on my flash attempt, but the last move is huge. I commit to a big jump, and my left hand fires off the shallow pinch. but I was very excited to be one move away from my first V7 on the kilter board. I worked the last move in isolation, and surprisingly, I'm able to get it. So I was feeling really good and thought I'd send this pretty quickly. But then I ran into this problem going to the second to last hold. My right foot would sometimes get caught and stop me from actually reaching the hold. This was pretty frustrating since I couldn't really focus on my right foot while making the move. But that's just a limitation of training boards, I guess. Eventually, I found that I could let my right foot drag straight up, or I could flag it really far to the right. But then, I had trouble linking that sequence into the last move, so I worked on the second half of the climb. When I was able to link the last half of the climb a couple of times, I decided to give it some ground attempts. But I underestimated how hard it would be to land this last move from the beginning. I threw myself at it over and over and over again, but it was so hard to hit the jug perfectly. If I didn't get deep enough, I'd fire off the right hand, and if I caught the lip but couldn't control the swing, then I'd fire off the left hand. And the holds are textured, so falling off this move is painful, and costs a lot of skin on both hands. Something I like about the tension board and moon board is that they have wooden holds, so you can look for climbs that use those holds and save your skin. There are probably better tactics for projecting this move. I could have tried using the higher foothold on the left, and maybe I could have even practiced on a shallower wall angle. But I was pretty committed to just throwing myself at the problem to try and send it as fast as possible. I realized I would have to maximize efficiency to have enough energy for the last move, so I found this micro beta where I get my left foot on to readjust my left hand, and I keep the foot on to take more weight off my hands as I go for the next pinch. And finally, after 4 hours and 32 attempts, I was able to get the send.
It took me 32 attempts to basically just get that one move from the bottom, but it was really worth it. And I'm proud to say that I was able to send V7 on my first day using the kilter board. It took me 4 hours to finally send that thing, which is really surprising because after an hour on the board, my fingers actually felt toast, but I was able to push through it a bit, and I was able to go for a lot longer than I thought. And I'm glad I did. And I'm very glad I didn't get injured though. So what are my first impressions of the kilter board? I really like the lighting system because you can see all the holds like very clearly, even when you're on the wall. So you don't actually have to remember where every hold is. For me, the main board I climb on is the 2024 moon board, and some of the holds are so big that you can't see the LED light underneath it. So just having the holds surrounded by the light is really helpful. It did take some time to get used to what each color meant, like getting used to orange being feet only, but once you get over that, it's not bad. I heard that the kilter board was soft, so I was expecting all of the holds to just be jugs, and while they're in cut, they're not like super good. That being said, there are a lot of good holds, so I think the setting gravitates just towards these massive throws to jugs and controlling like a crazy swing. And you know, that's what we saw for that V7 that I sent. It was really just landing that jug perfectly and being able to control the swing. One thing I like about the kilter board is the dedicated footholds. For something like the moon board, you basically just recycle the handholds as footholds, and on the 2024 board, since the holds are bigs, you basically have jug feet for everything. One thing I don't like about the kilter board is that there are no benchmarks or classics. So you're really just trusting the grades of random people on the internet. And to be honest, I don't think people really care about how they're grading or even rating a boulder. I know when I log an ascent, I just kind of choose the default values and move on. But I hope you enjoyed my first impressions of the kilter board. And if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to see more videos like it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!